Before we dive into the course too far, it's important to first examine our approach and try to recognize some of our own biases and influences. Just so you know, I'm originally from the UK, but I've been living and working in India for 10 years. My wife is Indian, and so is my baby daughter, and hopefully I'll be staying in India for the rest of my life. During that time, I've had the pleasure of teaching more than 900 students from the US, UK, Europe, and Australia about India, in India. Of course, people from all over the world have had an interest in India for a very long time. In fact, it was foreigners who first called India, India. The name India is an exonym, meaning it's a word that outsiders have given to a place. Ironically, the earliest recording of the word China comes from India, and it was an Indian word used to describe their neighbors from across the highest mountains in the world. The Chinese language, Mandarin, also gets its name from India, its origin being the Sanskrit word mantri, meaning bureaucrat. So who named India? Well, the story goes something like this. In the northwest of the Indian subcontinent, flowing out from the Himalayas, through modern-day Pakistan and into the Arabian Sea, is a great river called the Indus. Its ancient Sanskrit name was the Sindhu. The ancient Persians, living to the west of India in modern-day Iran, pronounced their S's as H's. Therefore, Sindhu became Hindu. In turn, the Persians' neighbors, the Greeks, learned about this river, and they dropped the H and called the land beyond the river as Indica. And the people who lived there as the Indoi. And the Romans then adapted Indica to India, and from there it passed into English. As early as 2,000 years ago, the Persians also started calling the people who lived here Hindu and their land Hindustan. You'll sometimes hear people use Hindustan to this day, as it became commonly used 500 years ago when the Central Asian originated Mughal dynasty ruled India and Persian was their court language. Originally, therefore, Hindu wasn't a word for the adherents of the Hindu religion, but rather as the name for the people who lived in the land that we now call India, all of them. When people think of Hinduism, they are really using a term which refers to the practices and philosophies that have origins, influences, relationships stretching back 5,000 years in this part of the world. And those are the practices and philosophies of the people who lived beyond the river in the land that we now call India. Before India gained independence from the British in 1947, India referred to not just what is now the Republic of India, but also to modern-day Pakistan and Bangladesh. This creates complexity to this day, as can be seen in California right now. One group of scholars are saying it should be South Asia, and another believe it should stay as India because that's what people have called the subcontinent for thousands of years, the outsiders at least. You might be asking yourself, what did the Indians call India at this point? Well, the Indian constitution provides the answer. One of the two official names is India and the other is Bharat. For example, the current ruling party, political party of India is the Bharatiya Janata Party, meaning the Indian People's Party. In recent years, it has become a cliche to refer to urban India as India and rural India as Bharat. In some respects, this is useful, and we'll refer back to this differentiation later in the course. Such is the complexity of India, though, that even this seemingly useful shorthand is a bit of a generalization. It's a huge generalization, as there are many Indias and many Bharats. You might also be asking, what does Sindhu, and therefore India, by derivation, actually mean? Well, the Sanskrit word Sindhu literally means body of trembling water, i.e. a river. So India, which is so often thought of in terms of its sacred rivers, literally means the river. And I suppose one can think of the Indians as being the river people. A pretty appropriate epithet, given the importance of rivers to life in India and their centrality to mythology, religious belief and ritual. We're going to be exploring more about India's geography in week 3 during our module on diversity. But for further reading, I'd thoroughly recommend Sanjeev Sanyal's excellent book, land of the 7 rivers.